Hello, this is Imad Latif, creator of Peep Game Comics. You're watching Black Comics Universe, presented by Peep Game Comics, exclusively here on The Experience. Follow, like, share this video, this program, as much as humanly possible. You can follow The Experience at _EXP. You can follow Peep Game Comics at PG Comics with an X, COMIX. And our next pair of guests is John Jennings and David Brames of this is fresh from the bookstore. After the Rain. This looks phenomenal. Piece of work here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, man. It seems like this is kind of like a family reunion. I haven't seen you guys. Normally, we see each other in person like at least once a year. I haven't seen you.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't been around for ages. So how's it been going for you guys?
You want to go, David?
Oh yeah, it's been pretty good, man. Like I live in Alaska right now, and been pushing this After the Rain book. So yeah, things have been really good, man.
How about you, John?
Yeah, things have been great. Let me see. Despite the obvious, been raising my son during a pandemic, which has been challenging and wonderful at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm teaching right now, and After the Rain is the first book from a new line of graphic novels that I'm editing and curating, for Abrams Comic Arts. We can probably get into that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But the book's been, doing well, and David and I have been collaborating on other stuff too, and just been in constant contact. And I think this is like our third or fourth event together, and it's been really great. Yeah. It's been great. So
yeah, I'm glad you were able to make time for me. And what I wanted to speak on, one of the first things that came to mind when I knew I was going to talk to you, John, was that when we talked last, when we were at SoulCon in Columbus, we actually talked about W.E.B. Du Bois and the idea of being a race man.
Yes.
You were saying how you consider yourself to be a race man. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea of the race man, particularly from like the Harlem Renaissance era and maybe even earlier, was focusing on uplifting, the Black race, and also, how do you say it? Showing the spectrum of experiences and the spectrum of talent that, Black people have, because, think about it, like the pursuit of art and literature are considered to be like really, really intellectual processes, and they are. It's a lot of intellectualism, connected to the making of creativity, creative things. So that's why the new Negro movement, also called the Harlem Renaissance, existed, is to kind of show like, not only are we spectacularly smart, but look at the genius that that Black folk can create in spite of the immense amount of setbacks and evil oppressions that have happened to folk of color in our country. So I even thought about recently the idea of like race comics because I was thinking about because they used to call rock and roll and the blues race music back in the day because it was created by Black folk.
Okay.
That's what white people used to call it back in the day. It was like race music, So, but yeah, so I was thinking about that a lot too. It's like, yeah, we are in a space where I feel like this kind of like embracing of Black speculative culture across the world is kind of like a new iteration of some of the other artistic movements that have come before, but now it's just manifesting itself in the popular, or as my friend Sean Taylor calls the Afro pop or the ad pop, the African diasporic pop, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did I answer your question? I ramble.
No, definitely, because it's been a recurring conversation as far as creators making a choice I want to be represented as a good writer or a good artist, as opposed to be considered Black or putting their culture ahead of their creative endeavors.
Yeah.
It always it always struck me that you intentionally, first things first, you said, I'm a race man. It's like, so there's no question for you where you stand in that regard. It's like, and I'm noticing by and large, a lot of us in the indie community have doubled down on that. It's like there's no question that we consider ourselves to be Black first in that light.
Yeah. I mean, it's how do I say this? When I first started in cartooning and stuff, I had a very similar mentality as far as like I just want to be a great cartoonist, a great artist, right? Mm-hmm. And I was realizing just how much how hard it is to be just anything when you're a person of color. I mean, it's just like it was just me being naive to a certain degree, and not to say that folk, I'm saying, for me it was. I felt like I just didn't understand like my place in the world as far as like how these particular interlocking systems of oppression were disrupting my life on a day-to-day basis, and so I definitely would love to just be able to make something that was just a story, what I'm saying? And but when I started thinking about Du Bois's criteria for Negro art, I was like, honestly, like until we're totally free, it's difficult for me not to make things that are about our liberation and our safety, Yeah. At least that's how I feel about it. And I don't look down on folk who don't adhere to that, what I'm saying? Because this is just my personal struggle. And so, yeah, it's like if there comes a Star Trek moment, later, what I'm saying? I'm here for it. I really, right. But at this moment, we're not there yet. And so I'm going to have to be, but, and this is kind of borrowing from what Stacey Robinson talks about. Is like, well, if you're against the system, they're definitely they don't really necessarily care about anything else but what, you being Black or not. What I'm saying? They're not gonna see sexual preference or, any other thing that you are adhering to. They're not gonna see you as an artist, Right. That's, yeah. So anyway.
What are your thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah, I just finished a residency at the Bunnell Arts Center here in Alaska, in Homer, Alaska, and my show was sort of like talking about that, like just this idea of not are sort of losing your agency and how you as a creator are allowed to express yourself. Right. As a Black artist, you're kind of, I mean, it would be nice to just make art. Like that's it, and you get sort of that openness, and you just get to use like the gestalt of all of your work. People just look at it, right? But that's not what we're not afforded that privilege, and that luxury to just be artists. So our work has to connect to who we are as people and to our history as who we are, because we have our history begins with the development of our culture, because we had to develop it, and right. We had to create, and we had to sort of find a way to take these disparate languages, other cultures, other things about us, and then we've always been doing that. So I would love to just make art. I would love to just draw, but we have to talk about that creativity, and we have to show it, and if we don't, then we get lost within the various institutions and industries. It's already hard enough to sort of like John was saying, there's all these other things that we can identify with, but our first thing is our Blackness, and so we have to make it like I guess salient for everyone that our Blackness is important. We have to like keep showing it, So yeah.
It's almost.
I think. Go ahead.
No, I was talking to some students earlier this week, and they were talking about how you work yourself out of a creative rut, and this almost speaks. This idea almost speaks to that. It's sort of like when you think about the oppression that we have experienced politically and socially, it's almost like that pressure sort of forces us to invent. So it forces us to create. It's almost like we from our oppression, Southern oppression came the blues, or it's like it came, the music that came out of that pressure, of that what seemed to be an oppressive, negative situation. We found ourselves creatively working our way out of those things, and I definitely can see how, as much as we don't want to, politicize what we do in terms of race and things like that. I like my brother, who's a fine artist. He likes to say, it's like you don't have to try to be political. Just by being Black, our work is already going to be politicized. Just by virtue of being Black. It's like I'm looking. For instance, I'm looking at that mural behind you, David, and I'm seeing this like, oh, that looks really nice, and it's like there's nothing ethnic that necessarily jumps out at me. But if I'm to believe if a Black person made it, then there's going to be something. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look for the keys.
Right.
Yeah.
But and there's nothing, and that doesn't take. I don't think it takes away from what it is you created. I think it only adds.
Right. Yeah. I think that's 100% true. There's like that existing in the spaces that we do as Black people is already an act of resistance.
It really is. And you read my mind, bro.
And it's a testament to what all of us are able to do. I mean, we're all academics in some level, I mean, we're terminal degrees, we're professors, we're award-winning creators, and I have people around me who just, you don't think about it as you think about it because you're a Black person and you exist in this space, but it doesn't occur to you how hard it is to do what we do, and the obstacles we have to sort of traverse to get to the places where we are and have the ability to speak the way that we do with the clarity and and I'm not talking about articulation. I'm talking about like just ideas speak with our souls, our minds, or whatever. So the metaphysical aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I think we should be emboldened by that. But I think that should also be part of maybe what the larger world should love about what we are as creators, and blurred Black creators of all kinds. So that pressure, like you were talking about, that tension, and I think the lack of resources creates a certain type of I think beauty and choice making that only happens when you don't have the entire you don't have every option available to you. Right. When there's going to be a stopping point where you're just like, okay, I have to overcome white supremacy first.
Right.
Once I get over that, this idea is going to work. It's going to be great.
But first of all, you have to circumvent this. Oh my God.
And awesome. I love this conversation. This definitely sets the stage for basically the story you guys are illustrating and expounding upon in After the Rain. Can you give people an idea of what the story is about and how it came about?
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm really good friends with Dr. Nnedi Okorafor. As you as you know, she's Nigerian American, also aka Niger American. Grew up. Her parents were in the country studying when the Biafran War jumped off, so they ended up having to stay just because of the conflict in Nigeria. And so her and her siblings grew up in the outskirts of Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago. And she ended up becoming a science fiction fantasy writer. And so very famous, actually, very, very successful science fiction fantasy writer. And writes from a perspective of someone who has traveled to the continent and been exposed to her on-the-ground culture a great deal, but also grew up in America. So, she likes to describe it as being on the fault line between, Africa and, America, right? And so that's why the Niger American piece came up. So the original short story she wrote is called On the Road, right? And it's from her collection of short stories called Kabu Kabu. And Nettie doesn't really write a lot of horror stories, right? She's, I think she used to love horror back in the day. I think once she had her daughter, it just got more difficult to write horror or to be into horror. But this story is a horror story, though. It actually has horrific elements to it, right? Which is what attracted me and David to it anyway, because we're both big horror fans. And I wanted to do this for a while. I actually talked to her after reading, I think I had just finished reading Shadow Speaker, which was her second book. And I started reading her short stories, and I was like, yo, I would love to adapt this into a comic of some kind. I feel, because I could sense the visuality of it, and it's really about the tensions of being from two different cultures and what you have to go through to kind of like mitigate those circumstances, and how much you have to let go of yourself to be who you are, and how much you have to accept to become who you might need to be. You know what I'm saying? So, and these are scary concepts. I mean, it seems like this is stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis. Like we just talked about the horrors of surviving white supremacy on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, and it just really resonated with me. And what happened was I actually started, breaking down the story and things like that. But I ended up, getting a fellowship to Harvard, meeting my wife, working on a Kendrick graphic novel with Dr. Damian Duffy, and I just didn't have a chance to do it. And then once I relocated here, me and David had been doing like smaller projects and stuff. And, we were like, hey, and I was like, hey, if we could pitch this to like to a company or something, would you want to work on it with me? And, I ran his artwork by Nettie. She loved it. And we thought it was a good idea. And that's kind of like how it started. But yeah, did you want to chime in a little bit? We could go back and forth, Dave. But yeah, so that's where he kind of comes in as the artist.
Yeah. That's where I like popped in. Yeah, like John, we had done a few small just like little collaborations, and then this popped up, and it sort of, I think it started out as a shorter piece, but then it kind of grew from there. It went through this kind of like crazy, there was sort of this long build-up period of like trying to get all the pieces together, and then after that, like they just all sort of, everything just sort of like went zoom, everything went a lot faster, and I don't know, the various well, actually, let me put it like this. John was just like, okay, so here's some ideas, and I'm just like, all right, okay, this is pretty cool. And then every time I would like send him, artwork, he would always sort of just like let me know that we actually do have creative control over how this is going to work. We don't have to make it look like, I guess we'll call them Western comics, sort of like regular art house, Marvel, whatever, comics. So with that, I just kept saying, are you sure you want me to like really let this go? I can go in, I can go crazy. Because like we both have like I would say we have a pretty vast and eclectic understanding of art history, as well as film, poetry, writing, everything, right? So it's just a really strong wealth of knowledge within who we are, and things we can sort of connect back to. So having those kinds of connections just sort of lets us just like sort of play around within these worlds, we call it sort of like remix or sample culture, in a way, to where we can just sort of like pick and choose from these different types of inspirations, bring them into our work, and then it becomes this new panoply of experience, this new beautiful, I don't have any more adjectives. Anyway, so it's just like, what we like, I would send him something, or he would say, you can do more, and then I would do more, and then I just sort of would let it go. I'm a pretty fast guy, so if I kind of get into a fugue state, I'll just draw, make lines, and try to like build that sort of internal meta narrative that connects to all the things that we've sort of been talking about, that Nettie was bringing up, that I think, that the John, like all the little various parts, and then so my piece was just to sort of bring that in, and then after me, I guess we can say back to John, because he then drops in colors and all this stuff. It gets crazy.
No, it's really dope. And we had two other collaborators, really, because Dr. Damian Duffy was our letterer, who was fortunate to work on the letters for us. And then Nettie actually had a lot of input. You know what I'm saying? Like she even like chose the cloth on the character's shoulders, for instance.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. But it starts. I was gonna try to have, because she does these decorations based off of Nsibidi drawings from Nigeria, and we thought about having her do that. She didn't have enough time to do it, but that would have been cool though. Maybe for another edition or something, because she does these like designs and stuff. So like when David and I started looking at, well, first of all, let me backtrack. So we had a lot of interest at a couple other publishers, including Tor, actually, the big sci-fi company, and pretty much almost had a done deal at Tor. And then what happened was Megascope happened, and so I was like, this book would be a dope, launch for my new book line, So I talked it over with David, talked it over with Nettie, and it's like, yeah, let's do it. And so, yeah, and that's how it ended up being a lead book for this new book line. And but yeah, so we had to expand certain parts of it. There's certain things that we wanted to do with like some of the more formal aspects of the book, like the whole book is about the tensions between the past and the present, secrets and reality, all these different dualities, and so we got this idea that the panel structure would be reality, and then like behind the panels and the gutters would be the ghost world, like the bush, as they say, and that's why the spiritual, like kind of the spirit world lived. And so what was really cool about it is that, I wrote it so that we would have, so David would like draw Chioma, the main character, like reacting to something. She wouldn't see it, but the audience would. What I'm saying? So we try to make it more like a horror movie where it's like, you can see what's jumping off, but the main character is like totally clueless, Okay. And so it builds up like the tension of these mysterious happenings, and it goes fast. Like it starts like the short stories. Like we did a pretty faithful, adaptation of Nettie's short story, No,
I do like the fact that you did not approach this as your traditional comic book at all. And you're right, you did let Dave go crazy, because I know, as I know he can, because I'm a fan of what he did with Greg, as far as what's
It's Nana.
Yeah, with It's Nana. Yeah, it's like so I knew where this could go, and I was
Mm-hmm.
hoping. It's like I said, I wonder if they're gonna pull back. But then when I saw the tag scene in the book,
Oh man, yeah.
that page like let me know exactly where this is headed. It's like, and you guys like, actually the book set it off right off the top that this is going to be a wild ride,
Mm-hmm.
regardless. And I like the fact that the artwork sort of reflects that.
Yeah, no, it went in, and it was, I don't know, like David said, like we definitely make like a really good storytelling creative team. I think this might be to date like my best coloring job on any book I've done so far.
I wasn't going to say that, but
yeah, I think it might.
it might be. I was when I picked it up, it was, and not this now. And I know this sounds crazy. When I picked it up, it's like, oh, they went you guys really went all out. It's like, not to say that not to say that y'all sucked before. I'm saying that you guys really put 110% in this book. I'm not.
Yeah.
You always put 110% everywhere else, but this particular book, and being your flagship book,
Yeah. We knew it needed to be like, David and I have like a we call ourselves Black Cats, BLKKATZ, as a kind of creative unit now, and so because we have like a bunch of other stuff that we're working on too.
So is that a thing now? So like every time you have a new creative team, like you got Black Kirby.
Yeah, Black Kirby, Black Cats is J2, me and Damien are J2D2. You know what I'm saying? Me and Jasmine Joyner are J4. As a writing crew. Yeah, it's almost like we talked about this before. Like out of Black Kirby came this collection of folk called Mother Box.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really talk about it a lot, but it's like there's like this consortium of like, a confederation even of connected writers, artists, scholars that work together to produce projects. Almost like like Wu-Tang Clan. You know what I'm saying? Where you have like these different designations. You got like Liquid Swords and like Killer Bees, and
Right.
Yeah, and it's just different collaborations within the group.
Can you? We talked a lot about comics in the scholarly realm as far as academia.
Yeah.
As far as the opportunities for the Black independent comic book industry to grow, as opposed to not looking for those big publishers, the big publishers, but actually looking at the academic world as a way to push this thing forward. Can you speak to basically the communities that you've built around a ton of universities?
Well, it's interesting because our good friend Frederick Louis Saldama, for instance, is a big part of that too. There's definitely like a conglomerate of sorry, do you hear my baby?
Yeah. It's fine. There's no problem.
Hilarious. That dude has no inside voice. Anyway, so what's happened is like over the past few years, there's been like an influx of like folk of color, white scholars too, who are really interested in like Black comics and other folks' comics, Latinx comics, what have you, that have become like really good friends and have started to like build inroads, into like teaching the work and buying the work. Like I teach a lot of indie stuff in my classes. For instance, like I teach Isnana. I'm teaching it this quarter actually. So what it does is it validates the work differently. It institutionalizes the work differently. I've actually co-founded what I think 3 major ethnocentric conventions, and that's the Schomburg Center, Center's Black Comic Festival, the Black and Brown Comic Arts Festival out in San Francisco, and of course SoulCon, which used to be in Columbus, along the same time as CXC. And working with institutions, it strengthens the reception and the validity of these independent comics endeavors, I think, and actually, Frederick actually also has an imprint with OSU and other places. And, there are a couple, and there's also some other places that are doing like Penn State, like Kendra Beaulieu's has 2 imprints now. One is Graphic Medicine, and the other one it's just launched called Graphic Mundi. Yeah, I did a piece for this thing called COVID Chronicles, right? And so there's a lot of interest in comics as a very viable, teachable medium. I mean, shoot, David used to teach sequential art. You know what I'm saying? At a couple of universities. So there's, and also too, the other thing that's been happening is that there's this very, very strong sense of accreditation of like doing comics professionally. And in fact, well, this because out of Columbus, for instance, you have what is it? OCAD? Is it OCAD? Not OCAD. Sorry, CCAD, right?
Yeah.
CCAD has a you can get like a degree in comics. I mean, that's what David has. He has an MFA in comics making. You know what I'm saying? He has a terminal degree. It's like having a doctorate in comics.
What is that?
That's what David has.
What is that experience like? Because
it's crazy.
It's like growing up, I saw comic book illustrators and comic book artists as rock stars, right? With the whole image idea, sort of like the whole hype around being a comic book artist. I think that's what drew me to comics just as much as the artwork. It's like that idea that I think every kid that grew up in the 90s who wanted to get into comics had this idea that they were going to be seen at a show. They're going to be seen at a show. They're going to get put on, and then they're going to be famous. It wasn't just, I'm just going to be a comic book artist. I'm going to be famous. But now,
famous. It's like I'm going to have a Levi's commercial.
Right? Yeah, whatever. I mean, Rob Liefeld was hanging out with Eazy-E for crying out loud.
I know, right? Yeah.
Who knows? It was just like this celebrity thing. Even Ty Johnson from Tribe, I remember him telling me when he was talking about how their time in the 90s in comics, he said they would walk into a room like basically him and Larry were they were the squad that was going. They walk into a room acting like they're about to take your girlfriend. Like
exactly.
they were rock stars. But now I'm just looking at it. Now I'm a parent. I'm looking at it more pragmatically. I'm a business person as far as comics, and I'm looking at all these things like, well, maybe that's obviously the rock star movement is not the way to go. Yeah, you can have an MFA in comics and actually have a career in the industry that doesn't feel as if you're starving, not just monetarily, but starving for attention at the same time.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you can be both. I mean, I would consider me and John pretty rock star like in terms of what we do,
Oh, we know John is at the very least. Yeah, John.
I mean, if you can walk into a room and people are excited to see and interact with you, if you can walk through a public space like a comic convention, people will follow you through just to like tap you on the shoulder and say, hey man, I saw that thing, or I read that book, or you inspired me with that seminar that I watched, or whatever it was. Like I think all that stuff I think we did do it. We became rock stars, I mean, like it's not like Eazy-E doesn't have kids. I guess maybe he didn't. He might not have made it. But yeah, I think
yeah.
No, but even in my hometown, I'm starting to be known as the comic book guy, so I know what it's like for sure. So what else can we expect from the imprint? It's like
man, so many awesome things. Let me tell you. Shoot. So here's the thing. So when I first talked to Andrew Smith, who's the publisher for Abrams Comic Arts, we were at dinner, and Abrams does this thing called the Abrams Family Dinner. So basically, like whenever they go to conferences, they'll take all of their creators and all their staff and everybody out to dinner. It's a big, just rent out of space, and it's just us talking about projects and just hanging out and getting to know each other. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to Andrew and I was like, thank you for the opportunity of doing this, doing Octavia Butler's work and stuff. I think at this point we had started working on Parable of the Sower. And and he's like, well, you let us know, let me know whatever you guys want to try to like adapt, we can try to get it for you. Right. And I was like, well, I was thinking about original content. And he was like, oh, well, that sounds like an imprint. And I was like, oh, okay, well. So yes, it does. And so what I did is actually wrote up a treatise, like just a 2-page thing, And so the imprint is the book line, as they say, is focused on speculative work, like speculative literature, comics, like, so that's horror, science fiction, fantasy, anything that's not reality, is what we're looking at. So all the genre stuff that we're all into. Mm-hmm. We're also doing some crime fiction, and we're also doing a historical fiction too. Like, so there, like, for instance, we're getting ready to drop a book about the Tulsa Race Massacre that Stacey Robinson drew. The short piece is like a primer about the Tulsa Race Massacre for kids and for teachers. So it feels like almost like a storybook kind of thing. But Alvin Ball is the writer for that, and then we're also doing a piece about the Emmett Till case too, which is a historical piece that Professor Chris Benson is a writer on. He co-wrote the original like seminal text with Mamie Till Mobley about the death of her son. So that's, and Eric Battle is the artist on that, right? So, but those are some of the most reality-based work. But most of the stuff we're doing is science fiction and fantasy. After the Rain is African Jujuist, what I'm saying, because it's looking at like the magic of Africa and how it relates to identity politics. Mm-hmm. The next book to come out is going to be called Hard Ears by these brothers out of Barbados, Matthew Clark and Nigel Lynch. It's like alternative reality Barbados sci-fi adventure political satire. It's like, it's beautiful. It's like if you take like Bayesian culture and then filter it through like sci-fi lens. It's nuts. I love it. And then like Black Star is another thing we're doing, which is it's like a adventure story, love story. It's about these astronauts who are all women who end up in this accident, and they're looking for the cure for cancer in this plant that's on a distant planet. But then it becomes like this really, really tripped out like game of cat and mouse, because 2 people survive and they have to find this like life raft to get off the planet. So it's like, and it's really good. It's really good. And then but stuff like that. We're working with Tananarive Due and Stephen Barnes on a book. We're working with Dennis Cowan and Reginald Hudlin on a book. It's pretty serious. Ashley Woods is on a book. It's Brian Christopher Moss is working with Stephen Barnes and the Charles Johnson on a book. It's called Eightfold Path. So it's very eclectic. The way I see it, I'm gonna stop talking. The way I see it is like, I wanted to have the kind of like a literary, erudite, curatorial sensibilities of Vertigo, right? Mm-hmm. But with the down like culturally centered aesthetics of, say, like Def Jam, or like or Stone's Throw, or like Raucous or something like that, where it has that hip hop mentality, but with a very focused like academic breeding of like a Vertigo. I was really inspired by what Karen Berger did with Vertigo, but I also like wanted to not have a house style.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no house style. Just make dope stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
About people of color.
Yeah, and I appreciate
like
and with this position, I really do appreciate the fact that you are tapping at least artists that I know that are in the Black Indian community.
Yeah.
And not to say that I know the full list or of everybody.
It's primarily us, man. It's primarily people who are coming out of that indie background who've been on the grind for a long time. I'm doing a book with, we're doing a book with Chuck Collins.
Yeah. It's like, and I appreciate the fact that you made a point to do that, whereas, other publishers that could have done that, they chose to go with, I guess, artists or, creative teams that they were more comfortable with. And I get it.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate, I think that you're offering the opportunity for like people like Christopher Mossy, like, this is sort of like actually putting them on a stage and putting them in a position where they can actually make a name for themselves nationally.
Right. I always wanted to work with Moss on a bigger project like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're working, and what I love about it is we get to pair up like super, super talented indie artists who are just killing it, like Brain, like David Brain,
Mm-hmm.
but marry them with like a Nnedi Okorafor, or a N.K. Jemisin, or
Right.
or a Nalo Hopkinson, like someone who's like, who's really, really well known author, gets to work with like this ridiculously talented artist team. It's pretty, and so because I have the curatorial like acumen to do something like that, and also try to put together people that you would never think would work together. That's the other thing too.
No, for sure. And what has it been like for you, David? Not to say that you've been picked or arrived, but it's like it's like like for me, and I'm totally, and I might totally be being presumptuous, because it's like I know your name from the indie community, and I know your work from the indie community, so. I'm as a fan, I just assume that it's like, oh, just yesterday he was, flipping burgers. Now he's, what I'm saying? It was like, so, but the reality might be, it's like, no, you've been really putting in work. So it's like, share with us, what your real timeline is.
Oh yeah, man. Like, I have been putting in work. I mean, you have to in the indie community to be doing stuff. I mean, it's honestly been pretty fantastic. Like I went 5 years ago. I think it was 5 years ago. I got out of academia. Like I was a full-time professor and, tenure, all that kind of stuff. Right. Like I went through that whole process, and I was like, I actually had this moment of being like, just in the position that I was in, it was, do you want to make comics and make dope art and invest yourself in that? Or do you want to be a professor full time? Do you want to deal with academia and go through those processes? And I wasn't in a privileged position enough to be able to build my own, like, academic incubator, so I could just do stuff that I liked and work with students that way. So I decided that I just wanted to, like that's the thing. So it took about it was like 5 years to go from I still came in with like connections, I would say, and my work ethic, but I didn't have any like connections, or I didn't have a built up independent network of creators that I worked with and all that. I had academic network.
Right.
So it took 5 years, and then now I'm here with After the Rain. I think from that moment to now, throughout that process, like it's been up and down, but there's all new and interesting projects, and I think a lot like quick. I think also, just taking chances on interesting projects. Like I think my style works well, not in any house situations. I mean, I can do house styles, but stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
no,
so I just keep choosing projects for people. Like right now, I have
It's that Alaska Wi-Fi. That's what that
Yeah,
is.
it's Alaska Wi-Fi. Yeah, we went out for that last. What was that?
Yeah,
The
What was that last part?
it is definitely that Alaska Wi-Fi. There's
Yeah, you said.
some indie stuff happening. I have lots of Kickstarters going on. Check out Blanco on Kickstarter. Yeah, man, it's been good.
Is that now? Is that live now?
It's actually been really good, and we're
Is that Kickstarter live now? The Blanco? I think we're
working on stuff. Yeah, live.
Yep.
Infrastructure.
I know. Yeah, I know, right? I'm killing me. But yeah, Blanco is dope. It's like I forgot. I think is it Marco Lopez who's the writer on it? Don't quote me on that. But essentially, it's like
Kickstarter live now.
I'm not sure actually. It's black and white. It's a black and white fantasy book. But it's like imagine Conan the Barbarian mixed with Black Sad. You know, Black Sad. You know, with the cat.
Yeah.
Anthropomorphic, like sword and sorcery story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. Yeah, we're working on a couple other things too. That we actually are part of a Professor Michael Norton Dando wrote this grant to do some critical making teaching stuff with comics, and so me and David were working on. I had like a couple of updates of Lion Man. I'm obsessed with like updating, old black characters, stuff like that. So I actually have like several versions of Lion Man that I've actually that I just had lying around. And me and Damien actually thought about doing stuff like this before. He wanted this thing called All Negro Crisis, eventually. But I was like, we need to get this stuff out because people have kind of caught up with us, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, oh, we need to get this stuff out. So I was like, all right. So I pitched like a couple of stories that related to Dando's teaching,
Mm-hmm.
He got a grant. And so, so me and Brahim are doing two short Lion Man stories. But one is like, what if Lion Man was created in 1970s, was the analog to like Black Panther? And the other one, like, what if he existed in the 90s? So it's almost like Vertigo style, Lion Man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, so it's weird.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
No, it's I've got some constructive criticism here.
Yeah.
Let's see. They want to announce the works that you guys are known for, and you're right. I do assume that people know because I've gotten on these conversations because a lot of the people I know,
right?
So I'm way too comfortable. So yeah. Can you guys share basically what you're known for?
Okay.
How, I know, but definitely we got to educate the audience for sure.
Okay. Well, so I am I'm a New York Times bestselling author because of the work I did with Damian Duffy, working on two adaptations of Octavia Butler's Kindred. Excuse me, I'll tell you those stories. One is Kindred, and one is Parable of the Sower. We're working on the follow-up to Parable of the Sower. Also with another Eisner for my scholarly work for this piece I did with Francis Gatewood called The Black of the Ink, which is a collection of essays around Black identity in comics. So I have like a couple of Eisners. Also been a Bram Stoker for actually I was the first African-American man to win the Bram Stoker Award in history. Yeah, which is like an Oscars of horror. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I won the same night as John. So I was me and Jordan Peele won, and then I think Dietrich Smith and Victor Laval won. So it's like four of us now. We won for Destroyer last year. Anyway, also created a book called Black Comics and Black Comics Returns with Damian Duffy, which is a kind of a collection of work about the Black indie community. So so I've been doing a lot of organizing scholarship around Black identity in comics for about almost 20 years now, actually. So, yep.
And David, how about you? What are you known for?
Being awesome.
Yeah.
The
Oh, dang, we lost.
Man, look, Alaska, Alaska not letting us be great.
yeah, being awesome.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
The indie.
Any comments? Oh, you breaking up, man.
Yeah, man.
Black indie community.
It's not.
You did some work with Greg. The say.
Yeah. He also worked on this great comic called Medicine. You know, it's like medicine, like SIN, which is like healthcare providers for supervillains.
Oh snap!
It's pretty awesome, actually.
Is that everybody?
What'd you say? Uh-oh, went out again. Dave, you went out again.
What did you say, Dave?
Anyways.
He probably said something hilarious. We can't hear you, bro. See, yeah, see, they like
everybody's out. This is like
my producer loves medicine.
Yeah. Also, too, Dave worked on this.
Really? Wow.
It was called the. Oh man, what was the name of the story about the? It was called. Was it The Trip, David? About these people that take this like, crazy drug and they go off on they go off on this like crazy like mind trip for this drug. Yeah, that was awesome. That was actually I think the first thing I saw of his, you know, which I just totally love. And yeah, so stuff like that. Then also working with Isnana the Were Spider, of course, which was dope.
Yeah. That was dope.
We also worked on a project together with the artist Sanford Biggers. We did this piece called Mother Patchwork. That was it was for Yale University Press. And Sanford Biggers is this really famous like African-American artist that does quilt work and stuff. And so we collaborated on that for Yale University. So it's going to be part of the art show that they're traveling show. So
I love quilt work.
Me too. I love working in it into stories actually. Yeah.
We have a show here at the Toledo Museum of Art showing some American quilts.
Yeah.
I need to get to it. But before we head out, I wanted to speak about horror because I've noticed that genre in a crazy sort of way, the genre in and of itself seems to be empowering, and almost as a tool, I've noticed that independent creators have been able to elevate themselves.
Yes.
Through horror. Yes, Backs of Bones.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to
Bill Campbell. Rosarian, yeah.
Can you speak to like basically, I don't know, the power of horror and why that genre seems to be so empowering in that sense, and being able to actually elevate our message and our stories?
You know, it's interesting because some people kind of shy away from it and think of certain stuff as like, you know, trauma porn or whatever. But I think that when you start looking at the mechanics of horror, that it really is an interesting way to unpack different types of social issues. You know what I'm saying? Because especially from like a Black perspective, it's like so much of our history has been traumatic in this country, and I think it's an interesting way for us to through the catharsis, like let that stuff go so we can move to an Afro future, so to speak, you know? So I came with this term called ethnogothic that actually is focused on that idea, like naming that demon, you know, figuring out how to, you know, claim it or control it or let it go, and then moving forward, because basically it's a release of these different types of like really, really kind of like detrimental systemic traumas, you know? The monster is a metaphor. You know, the idea of the monstrous is a mechanics. The monster represents all kinds of things, you know, as far as like, you know, how it manifests and stuff. So I think that you make the monster so you can understand what's ailing you, so to speak, right? That's the way I look at it. So when you see stuff like Bitter Root or like, you know, Ring Shout by Frederickson Clark, or Lovecraft Country, or Destroyer by Victor LaValle, or the Battle of Black Tom by Victor LaValle, or Box of Bones. We're utilizing horror as a technology to kind of unpack these issues, to have discussions about them and how they make us feel. And some people get uncomfortable by that, but other times some people feel like a little bit lighter after dealing with those things, because we tend to hide from those issues, you know. But I think really good horror actually like gives you a way to talk about very, very intricate, disturbing material or painful material without engaging with it directly. It's almost like, you know what a good analogy is? You know how Perseus killed Medusa?
Yeah.
You know, he used the shield, right? He reflected, so he wasn't looking directly at it. But he saw it, but he wasn't looking directly, and so he was actually able to destroy Medusa from that by looking at it askance. And that's how we can use horror to kind of empower ourselves, you know. Yeah.
And what?
Yes.
Yes. Is a local comic shop the best place to get all of your work?
Yes, I think all the stuff that we are making is available through Diamond. So because Diamond is the distributor. All the things that we're doing currently are available through you know, what they say, what fine books are sold, or what we're like available where fine books are sold, something like that.
I found mine at Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble, exactly. Yeah. So basically, like, you know, working with Abrams increase our distribution. Like, so After the Rain is available globally, you know.
Yes.
So, yeah. So which is really crazy. And actually, too, David, I don't know, our sales figures are pretty nice. In spite of COVID too. So we're doing well with this first book in spite of like being cloistered in. So that's good to know. And we haven't even gotten digital sales back yet either. So that's the other thing too. All of our stuff is available digitally too.
Right.
Yeah.
And was definitely going to basically set up the success for your next book.
Yeah. Also too, you know, check out Bluesman on Peep Game as well too. That's kind of an experiment, but it's like that's kind of produced a book, you know, with two cats called Bluesman that's on Peep Game. So go check that out as well.
Yes. Please go check that out. Peep Game Comics and wherever fine books are sold, as you said.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
We got about 3 minutes. Anything you want to, you know, how would you like to close out?
David, you try to
come on, Alaska.
Yeah, everybody keep in. Oh man.
We can hear you.
Oh yeah, I like towels. Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah, I like.
Come on, Alaska.
No, it's killing me. Killing my soul. Oh man. Okay.
Towels.
So
yeah, I'm losing you, man. I just want to say that you can check out our books by going, you can actually order them directly from Abrams Comic Arts too. You know, that there's links, from Megascope books.
mm-hmm.
We just had a really cool New York Times article about Megascope and Afrofuturism comics that just came out. It's called Beyond Black Panther, so check that out.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a site up now, which is weird as hell, but I haven't had a site in like 20 years. So you can find me at John Jennings Studio.
Okay.
One word, johnjenningsstudio.com, and it'll have some of my things that I've been up to, including speaking, like doing some, a couple of documentaries with Marvel. That was really cool, so.
Okay.
So stuff like that.
Real quick, that was really interesting, like what you've been doing with Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
I was asking somebody, we were talking about, wonder who is the biggest comic book celebrity, and it's like, we was like at Marvel, and I said, well, dang, it's like John has been on 2 documentaries and he don't even do anything with Marvel. It's like, I'm trying to think.
Right.
So you might be the biggest thing at Marvel that's not working at Marvel. So
right. I mean, I work for them. I've been doing some writing for them and working on a new nonfiction book with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a relatively new thing, but
All right. That's dope. All right. Well, we'll be back at the top of the hour. I appreciate you guys coming through, giving me your time. And it's always good to talk to you, John.
Yeah, likewise, man. We need to catch up, Bill, some more soon.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Dave, man, I'm so sorry about your internet, man. I hate that. So I'm like, it's just not cool. Anyway, all right, y'all. I'm gonna go out and wrestle with this baby. So
all right. We'll be right back. Appreciate it.